When I first moved to the United States at around age 10, year was like 2007, so y'all can do the math on that one if you desire. I was a good kid. I was a kid who had his head on straight. I had goals and ambitions. I was acting at the time. From the age of like 2 years old was my first commercial, and I fell in love. I had the acting bug. Played a couple sports and things of that nature, but I was given over to the world of creation and entertainment and things of that nature. And by the time I was around 12 years old, after being paid to act from 10, 11, 12, I decided to drop the entire thing because I wanted to be quote unquote cool, right? I want to be considered as a part of the in group. And so I dropped my true identity and I replaced it with, I guess, what they would call like a YN sort of persona, right? Which is short for a young N-word, right? I became not a black man or a young black man or a young black boy, but instead I became a young N-word. And with that came the characteristics, the way I acted, etc. Now at 12, 13, I hadn't stepped into the world of, using dope, selling dope and things of that nature. But by the time I was 14, 15, I'm now in high school. I'm partying. I'm, surrounded by certain types of individuals. I'm trying to be perceived as that guy. And all of a sudden I found myself in a place where I would have lost my life. And in the next decade and a half, I would lose 3 of my very best friends to that lifestyle. 3 of them OD'd. 1 of them is still in and out of jail to this day. As recent as the last funeral, which was last year, I believe last year in around April. And, I saw the last of us 5 who was still alive, and he had just told me that he had just got out. We had not kept in contact because I needed to move on with my life. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is, as we get into the story, it's heartbreaking to me that when I speak on subjects such as what black culture, mainstream black culture has become, and it is the mainstream culture. A lot of folks are still in denial, trying to say it's a subculture, it's a fringe thing. No, it's made its way into the mainstream. Unfortunately, most young black boys, young black girls are looking to this for direction. They're looking to the rappers. They're looking to the OnlyFans girls. They're looking to that sort of degenerate example or quote unquote modeling in order to kind of create their own path. And so I came across this video and I feel like this is probably the perfect depiction. Again, I have not watched this in totality. I know that there's music in the background and like there's kind of subheaders or whatever you may call them on TikTok. So I'm going to go ahead and just read this story out. But it's essentially a story of an auntie who saw her, beautiful niece or nephew, her nephew become, this YN sort of persona and how it took his life. Because at the end of the day, that's the part that is the most heartbreaking is the lives lost, whether it's in a cell or in a box. And, as the cliche goes, those are only 2 places you can end up if you follow the streets. If you go down that path, you will end up in one of those 2 places. It's really as simple as that. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cue this up. I'm going to do my best to read this in real time, but y'all can see the imagery as we move forward. So how my nephew turned into a YN right before my eyes and I couldn't do anything about it. So here he's 11 years old. I kept him with me as much as I could. I wonder where his mother is. I was happy when he got serious about sports. I would always tell him sports could take him far if he worked hard. He was a happy, fly kid, always laughing and joking. What is that? A breakdown took place between him or his mom and my brother. Oh, okay. And his wife. The relationship between him, his dad from the day. What? The relationship between him and his dad from that day. Okay. From that day forward was strained. Okay. So father figure is everything in life. Not just a father who's there, but a father who's present. And I think that's something that's oftentimes kind of left out of that conversation. He was still my baby, so I go get what? He was still my baby, so I go get him every chance I got. Okay, it's a little bit of Ebonics in here. We're going to have to do a little translating. Okay. There's some videos of them together. He was so handsome. Something was different in his eyes. He didn't smile as much. Still that. I called him handsome and made him laugh. I ran into him at the gas station. He was in the car with some questionable little dudes. He's getting big. I always made a point to communicate with him often. Hat big on my head. Don't post that. He hadn't responded to me in a couple times, and I found out he was locked up. He had just came home right here. I wrote in his birthday card I wanted to see him graduate and make something of his life, and gave him $100. He kept his promise. Here's a graduation. Started hearing things in the streets. You want to be a street so bad? Nope. You like life? Yeah. Well, you better act like it, N-word, because there ain't no coming back from that other side. So that's his aunt. You're gonna these are marginalized type of people. This sort of back and forth. I made a fake IG page so I could watch him. Let's see. Oh, is it going? Okay. Yep, here we go. So he's got a picture right here holding a weapon. That's a message. You're going down the wrong. This is the auntie now. You're going down the wrong path. I've been watching your page, and I hope you know that what you be doing is clownish. Real street N-words don't even move like that. You're going to get yourself hurt out here or find yourself in a world of trouble. Can't nobody tell you what to do, but I can definitely tell you you're going to be disappointed when you look back on your life and see you wasted it. I know and knew plenty N-words on the same path, and I said new because half of them are dead and gone. That's facts. And the other half ain't gonna see the other side or the other world again. And when you out of sight, you always out of mind, meaning ain't nobody gonna give a F how G'd up you was, because they ain't gonna be thinking about you at all. Get your life together. He said, yeah, you're right. That was what? Same day? Yeah. Same day. For real, man, you can't dwell on. I asked my brother to assist. At this point, he said he was grown and he couldn't make him do anything he didn't want to do. This is close to the story of who was my best friend. From the time I was maybe sixth grade up until maybe 21, 22-ish, when we just couldn't keep a relationship anymore. And he ended up losing his life at around 27, 28. And this was the exact same sort of thing. I mean, grandparents, aunties, everybody was trying to galvanize at some point. People were praying for him, etc. But it's like, and his pop said this to me earlier on in my 20s. He said, man, you better not be with these guys. You better not be hanging out with them, because you got more to live for. And by then I had made my decision to sober up, leave the streets behind, and to change my life for the better. His own pops, who was involved in street activities and things of that nature for most of his life, was the one to tell me, leave them alone. Basically, go no contact, because he knew where that was going. And unfortunately, less than a decade later, he would get that phone call that no parent should ever be getting. Happy birthday. Let's see. The best auntie in the world. I love you. That's him. Thank you. Thank you. I love you always. You know that. You're welcome. What you doing today? I'm about to go to this little concert. And then like a ton of bricks. Oh, wow. Not even a year went by. It was just a couple months later. That's the flyer. I know that flyer. My world came crashing down, but I played a big part in raising him. I would give him anything. Yeah. Look, these are heartbreaking stories. And oftentimes, when I speak on the subject, the criticism that I get is, oh, you a sellout, your Uncle Tom, all this sort of stuff. And honestly, that's nothing more than like what I've come to realize. Most of that is individuals who they're triggered, right? Because maybe they're living this way, or they're enabling other people for living in this sort of way. When I call out the culture and I say that it is vile. It is, it's a degenerated culture. It's unproductive. It is, dare I say, demonic, sinister. There's a lot of evil components in it. It is a broken culture. It promotes brokenness, right? It doesn't promote life in any stretch of the imagination. I mean, when we're talking about the value of that boy's life, whose life was taken by another young man, likely who looked just like him. When we talk about the baby unaliving rates in the black community and how normalized it is. Lives thrown and wasted somewhere in a prison cell for the rest of their lives because of what? Because of pride and ego. It does not celebrate life. So it's a death culture. And it's a choice at the end of the day whether or not we continue to endorse and promote that culture. And so when you make excuses for the rappers and you make excuses for, the digital or even the in-person streetwalkers, as I say, the 304 culture, promiscuity and violence and drug abuse and things of that nature, when those things are made cool and hip, and some people say, well, what about the white boys doing it? And I say, look, many of them, they turn on the song, they feel it for a second, then they can turn to the country song and they can return back to their neighborhoods. You're living it out as your lifestyle. You turn the song on and follow it as if it was your instruction manual. You take it home with you. And I would never want to be the person to say, we don't have a freedom of speech. People articulate how they want, etc. But again, why is it that the people who are worshipped and pedestalized are the ones who are pushing this message? This young boy right here, who turned into a young man, or at least he never grew into manhood, he got this persona from somewhere. Look, the song he's playing right here, he got this from somewhere. There was already a box that he could fit in. The culture created a persona for him and he fell into that persona. He accepted that persona as his own. And there were many who enabled it, many who got out the way, many who are demonstrating it and essentially being models of it probably in his own life. His auntie was doing her best, to steer him clear of that. But unfortunately, by that point, it was already too late. And the ones who had the most influence in his life, they didn't reach him. He was failed by the culture. Yes, the culture is problematic. And black people have taken that culture as their culture, not even knowing that it's a culture that you took, that you adopted, from the white Southern rednecks who came from the Ulsters in England in the 1800s, 1700s. You've taken those ways of living and you've made it a costume for yourself. You've owned it and identified yourself with it. And then you're mad when other people call it out, especially people who look like you call it out. To me, that just rings of one thing. It rings of, I am guilty of that. And the best thing to do if you're guilty of something is to own up to it. That's what I had to do. I am a part of the problem, right? AA. Step number 1, admit the damn problem. The diagnosis is being told to you every day and you blame the white man and this man and that man. And you try to spin it back on. It's like, when I see these pages sometimes of, black men usually who are sharing, oh, look at white culture. Look at white culture. Look how they're doing this and doing that. And I think to myself, okay, so you created this because you basically are sick and tired of people pointing out things in maybe your own culture. God forbid that be your culture. But you feel like, oh, I'm being attacked, so let me show you what you got going on. That's not helping. And I'm not saying it's helping to, always be just exposing, oh, look at just ratchetness for the sake of ratchetness, right? I get that. But you're not helping. It's like, you go to a doctor's office and you say, what's the problem, doc? And he tells you, well, you got this and this going on. And then you say, well, but you got that and that going on. That's not going to help you. If you take the diagnosis and you do something about it, then you can help yourself. But you trying to project the thing back onto, or deflect and put it back onto the other person, that's not going to help you. That's not going to save you. You're going to continue to help these people perpetuate that life, to help to be delusional about what they're doing to themselves. Nobody is your worst enemy. Like you can have enemies out there who want to come get you or whatever, but there will never be a worse enemy than yourself when you are self-destructive. You will be your very worst enemy. Nobody can do worse things to you than you can when you're in that sort of mentality. And so this is just one story of a million stories. And it doesn't have to be this way. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there. Or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace. Aquarius. Where?
I've been up for hours, I've been up for days, you. Staring at the ceiling, I've been counting strays, you. I've been in my feelings, I've been out of mind. I've been getting visions of the other kind. I've been up for weeks. I'm in the count of blessings over count of sheep. I can never be the type to limit when it comes to me. I used to be the pleaser for the people. I ain't